Back in those days, in the land where ascetics and philosophers still roamed through the mist and smoke of the wilderness, a question rang out ceaselessly amidst the human world. What is wholesome? What is unwholesome? Humans argued, scholars debated, and Taoists drew up countless definitions. Some said that wholesome means doing whatever puts one's own heart at ease. Others said wholesome means doing what makes others happy amidst countless concepts. The Buddha stepped forth, carrying not vague theories in his hand, but a direct gaze. Wholesome and unwholesome are not born from desire but born from mental action. At that time, many were discouraged because they thought he did not state a stance on the great questions about the universe. Is the universe finite or infinite? Does the soul exist or not? They called that silence vague. They called it evasion. But few realized that precisely in that silence, he was drawing an absolute boundary between shadow and light. What is skillful in action, and what is clumsy in the mind? A group of wandering ascetics once told his lay disciple that Samana Gautama had no stance at all. That disciple just smiled. He has a single stance, distinguishing what leads to suffering, and what ends suffering. When the story was retold, the Buddha just nodded, because for him, every teaching begins from a boundary. Which action is wholesome? Which action is unwholesome? He said taking life is unwholesome, taking what is not given, sexual misconduct, lying, speaking harsh words, divisive speech, frivolous speech, covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. All are unwholesome. Then he said, abandoning those things is wholesome. Not killing, not stealing, not engaging in sexual misconduct, not lying, not speaking harshly, not speaking divisively, not speaking superfluously, not coveting, not bearing ill will and right view. That is wholesome. It sounds simple, but that very simplicity is the blade cutting through every sophistry of the world over the past centuries. Humans still find ways to justify wrong actions with beautiful names. Killing for justice, lying for a greater purpose, stealing for survival. But in his moral path, good has no exceptions. When someone asked, "Is there anything you allow killing?" the Buddha simply replied, "Only kill anger, other than that, nothing is worth killing." He once had a bhikshu who went to advise an executioner, "Kill your victim with a heart of kindness, one clean stroke. Do not torture." And precisely because of that sentence, that person was expelled from the Sangha. Because even advice to kill with kindness is still advising to kill, and that is contrary to the path he opened. Even when attacked, he did not allow retaliation with murderous intent. Once he taught the bhikshus, even if bandits cut your body limb by limb with a saw, if a mind of anger rises, you are not following my words. That word is like a sword piercing through the survival instinct of humans, but at the same time, it opens up a different height, where the mind no longer belongs to animalistic instinct but belongs to the space of great compassion. Because when the mind has no anger, no hatred, death is no longer an enemy. He taught to practice like this: my mind will not waver, my mouth will not speak evil. I will be full of goodwill, no hatred, sending loving kindness even to those who harm me. That is not just morality, that is the practice of liberation, a way of training to no longer be a slave to hatred. From that foundation, the precepts are born. Precepts are not punishments but gifts. The person keeping precepts, not killing, not stealing, not committing sexual misconduct, not lying, not speaking divisive words, is precisely giving the world a gift: the absence of fear. The Buddha said, "Who abandons the taking of life, that person gives countless beings freedom from danger, from hatred, from oppression, and that person receives back their own share in that freedom." That is the first gift, ancient, pure, unsuspected, unable to be stripped away. A gift is only valid when it is given unconditionally. Because if we say we do not kill, unless someone threatens us, then that precept is already broken, that fruit is already lost. The true precept holder is one who no longer places conditions on loving kindness. In that loving kindness, there is no self and other, only life sharing the same breath. Therefore, the Buddha taught that if one wants this freedom to be effective, it must be absolute no ifs, no buts, no special cases. Only then does the mind truly not create more killing karma, because karma is not determined by the external result but by the motive in the mind. Actions born from greed, hatred, and delusion, no matter how beautiful the result, it still bears the fruit of suffering. Actions born from non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion, even if the world does not understand, still bring peace. That is natural law. No need for any God to certify it. The Buddha taught, if we act with a wholesome mind, wholesome fruit will come in this life or the next. If acting with an unwholesome mind, suffering fruit will come. When not killing anyone, we do not sow the seed to be killed, although old karma may still cause this body to suffer harm. But when the intent to kill has stopped, we no longer open the door for new killing karma to be born. He likened that to a simple yet profound image. If the hand has no wound, it can hold poison without being harmed. Poison does not enter where there is no wound. One who does not do evil is not affected by evil. That is not a philosophical statement but a truth as obvious as breathing. The precept holder not only protects others but protects themselves. Therefore, he called precepts the greatest treasure, something that no king, no thief can take away, and also the only shield that can protect a person on the path to nirvana. Someone once said that if the Buddha lived in this era, he would allow some moral flexibility to adapt to a fluctuating world. But those who have read the scriptures carefully understand, his loving kindness has no limit, but his principles are absolute. Because when we add conditions to a precept, the precept is no longer a precept. It becomes a bargain between fear and justification. The Buddha did not teach how to evade karma but taught how to stand tall amidst cause and effect. He called precepts the first gift, a gift that the practitioner bestows upon immeasurable beings and receives back immeasurable safety. That gift only exists when we stop placing ourselves at the center. It is not that we keep precepts to gain blessings, but we keep precepts because we have seen the suffering of all living beings. Precisely that seeing makes loving kindness limitless. Because every time we initiate the intent to kill a creature, even a mosquito, we are nurturing the concept of allowing killing, and in the cycle of cause and effect, that concept never dies. It will find a way to return, in another form. It could be someone else killing us, it could be sickness, or constant insecurity, not because someone is punishing us, but because the energy of the killing mind naturally seeks its own source. The Buddha said when a person keeps the precepts not killing, not stealing, not committing sexual misconduct, not lying, then the world around that person naturally softens, because they are creating a space of trust, where every creature feels safety. And when the world no longer fears us, we also no longer fear the world. That is immeasurable freedom, something that no violence can create. He taught about karma and rebirth not to scare but to show humans the subtlety of action. Karma does not end when the action stops, but only ends when the intention stops rising. If we kill someone, even just once, but in our mind still nurture the idea that we had a just reason, then that killing intent still continues to rotate. Conversely, if we once committed a fault but see it clearly and stop initiating the killing mind, then right at that moment, the killing karma has been blocked. The Buddha taught that one who does not create more causes of suffering will not create more fruits of suffering. Even if old karma causes this body to be damaged, that mind is still free. Therefore, he placed the foundation of liberation not in knowledge but in the stillness of intention. One day someone asked him, if one does not believe in reincarnation, is it necessary to keep precepts? He just smiled. If you live without harming anyone, even if there is no afterlife, you still win in this life. That person was silent because in those words there was no faith, no dogma, only obvious truth. The virtuous person is at peace. Precepts, therefore, are not just moral laws but the wisdom of action. It does not force but only reveals the clarity of one who has clearly seen the cause of suffering. The Buddha never compromised with violence in any form. He did not recognize just war, did not accept killing for ideals. He knew that when humans kill others in the name of good, that good has died from within the concept. Therefore, he remained silent before warlike kings, but his silence was wisdom, not agreement, because there are truths that can only be heard when the inquirer's mind is ripe. With those still attached to power, attached to fame, speaking directly only makes them close their hearts, but silence sometimes sows seeds of regret. The Buddha knew this well, so he spoke through stillness, teaching with his gaze. Once, a warrior asked him, do those who die in battle get born into the heavenly realm? 3 times, he remained silent. On the 4th time, seeing the person was sincere, he said, one who fights with the thought wishing for others to be destroyed, if dying in battle, will be born into the hell of the slain. That warrior burst into tears, not out of fear, but because he realized he had been deceived by the teachings about the hero's heaven. That story is not just a dialogue between an enlightened one and a soldier. It is a symbol of the eternal war between humanity and its own instincts. Humans always want to believe that one can kill and still be honored. But in the Buddha's view, murderous intent never leads to peace. Others argue that kings who believed in Buddhism still waged war, implying he accepted it. But that is like saying because someone wearing a monk's robe breaks a precept, the precept has no value. The teachings of an enlightened one cannot be measured by the behavior of the unenlightened. He knew well the nature of power, that power is always blinding, turning a wise person into one who does not see the truth. Many kings of that time, despite listening to the Dharma, still asked him how to defeat their enemies. He did not answer but told of 4 mountains rolling from 4 directions, crushing all living beings, old age, sickness, death, and time. Then he asked, when those 4 mountains approach, what will you do? The king replied, there is nothing left but to live in accordance with the Dharma. He said, that is the only correct answer, because no army can defeat impermanence. Hearing that, the king awakened somewhat, understanding that true strength does not lie in swords and spears, but in a mind that creates no further suffering. And precisely because of that, when his enemy was captured, he did not kill him. The Buddha did not order forgiveness, but his light made the king know to stop on his own. Hearing the news, he only said, the plunderer will be plundered, the killer will be killed, the conqueror will be conquered. The cycle of karma favors no one. Those words were not meant to admonish anyone specifically, but a warning sent to the whole world that every behavior, under whatever name, returns to its starting point. Good begets good, evil begets suffering. No one stands outside that law. And then, in silence, he left a space for humanity to reflect. If even the Buddha does not justify killing, why do humans still try to whitewash blood in the name of righteousness? Because the hardest thing is not keeping the precepts, but accepting that good must be absolute, even when it makes us lose in this life. And long nights, when the world is submerged in sleep, there are still those sitting quietly, looking deep into their own breath, asking themselves, why are precepts so important? Why can a small vow like not killing become the pillar of the entire path to liberation? The answer does not lie in reasoning but in the very experience of the mind. Because when people keep precepts, they are not obeying a rule, but redirecting their own energy from violence to peace, from instinct to mindfulness. Precepts do not come to imprison but to liberate. It is a stopping before a wrong action is born. The Buddha once said, "When the mind has an intention, action has already begun." So when we restrain ourselves from doing evil, we are actually holding it right at the mind, the place where all karma rises. That is the crucial point that makes the true precept holder begin to step onto the path of wisdom. Precepts are not separate from karma, because karma is not punishment but the natural reflection of action. Each action initiated from greed, hatred, and delusion is like a stone dropped into water. The ripples do not disappear, but spread far until that energy meets the very person who threw it. If that seed is violence, the result will be insecurity. If that seed is compassion, the result will be freedom. Keeping precepts is stopping the hand that is preparing to throw one more stone into the lake of karmic force. When the mind stops, the old stream of karma begins to dissolve. When the mind continues to be violent, new karma is born, extending infinitely. Therefore, the practitioner does not keep precepts out of fear of hell but because they understand that every murderous intent is a wound in the consciousness. And as long as that wound exists, insecurity will find its way back, no matter where we hide. Those who understand precepts no longer ask, "What do I get if I do good?" They only see that when doing good, the mind is at peace. When doing evil, the mind suffers. That is direct truth, requiring no belief. The Buddha once told the Kalamas, "Look at yourselves. If something makes the mind uneasy, do not do it. If something makes the mind peaceful, do it." Keeping precepts is no longer a command but a clear insight into cause and effect in the present. Precisely because of that, precepts are internal protection, not armor on the body. King Pasenadi once said, "Even with thousands of soldiers protecting, an evildoer is not protected, but a person of virtuous conduct, even without an army, is safe, because true shelter does not come from steel but from the serenity within." On the path to liberation, the Buddha taught 3 steps: precept sila, concentration samadhi, and wisdom panna. One who does not keep precepts cannot have concentration, because their mind is still agitated by guilt and fear. One who has no concentration cannot have wisdom, because wisdom is not born in turbulence. So precepts are the only ground for wisdom to grow. A person can learn all the scriptures, can debate about non-self, about nirvana, but if they still kill, still deceive, still harbor anger, then that wisdom is just light reflected in muddy water. The Buddha once said, "A person with precepts, even if not in deep meditation, is still fearless, because precepts are the shaping of a wholesome mind, the beginning of freedom." From precepts, one begins to understand what compassion is, because one cannot say they love living beings while still killing a life. Compassion is not an emotion but the inability to harm. When the mind is truly compassionate, it no longer has the capacity to cause injury, even in thought, and in that moment, the precept holder themselves is also liberated from fear. Therefore, precepts and freedom are 2 sides of the same coin. Every time we do not kill, we are giving freedom to another and freedom to ourselves. Every time we do not lie, we are keeping for the world a clear zone of trust. Every time we do not steal, we are stopping before the hunger of the ego. Precepts do not require us to become saints. Precepts only require us to stop for a moment before causing suffering to someone. And in that very moment of stopping, we see mindfulness begin. That is why the Buddha called precepts a priceless asset. When the body decays, wealth is lost. When power collapses, fame fades, but virtue is not lost. It is the only thing death cannot touch. Kings can strip away life, but cannot strip away purity. The precept holder not only lives in the world but is gradually stepping out of the cycle of cause and effect, because every wholesome action is a door closing on old karma, and every time one stops before anger is a step forward to liberation. At that time, precepts are no longer rules but the natural breath of a clear mind. That person does not have to try not to kill because in their mind, the concept of killing no longer exists. They do not need to speak the truth, because deception no longer has a reason to exist. That is when precepts become nature. And when precepts become nature, concentration naturally arises, wisdom naturally initiates. Therefore, the Buddha taught that one who keeps precepts absolutely is building a house of liberation right on this earth. Each brick of the precept is a moment of mindfulness. Each wholesome action is a step away from suffering. To those who still argue about good and evil, right and wrong, precepts may seem like a framework, but to those who have seen the nature of karma, precepts are the door opening to immeasurable freedom in the flow of history. Humans have ceaselessly allowed themselves to cross the boundaries of moral laws. They justify killing in the name of righteousness, protecting the nation, saving the world. But under the Buddha's gaze, every reason disintegrates when touching the root of the mind. No killing is born from true compassion. He understood that an angry mind, even if wearing the cloak of duty or glory, is still an angry mind. The one holding the sword for vengeance or the one holding the sword for justice, both sow the same seed of violence. Therefore, precepts are not a barrier for the weak but a foundation for the wise. The wise do not win by strength but by not letting their minds fall into resentment. Once a king asked the Buddha, "Sir, sometimes I must conquer to keep the people peaceful. Is killing in that case a sin?" He did not answer directly. He only said, "Look and see, has anyone ever escaped suffering through killing?" And in that silence, the king saw himself, a winner of 10,000 battles, but with a heart still empty. That is how he taught, not condemning, not criticizing, but illuminating with cause and effect, because he knew only wisdom breaks the cycle of reincarnation, not debates about keeping precepts. So it is not to become more moral than others, but to not repeat one's own mistakes. Every time we harm a living being, the world immediately loses a part of its balance. And the subtlest thing is that the harmer also loses the light part in their own mind. That is why monks who keep precepts always say no killing, rather than just not doing evil, because killing not only harms another's body but kills the compassion within oneself. Karma lies not in the action but in the mind's intent before the action. If a person kills out of fear, out of hatred, or for profit, they tie themselves to the fruit of suffering. But if they stop, look deep into the mind, see clearly the anger burning and put down the knife, right at that moment, karma stops, reincarnation stops. Someone asked, "This world is full of injustice. If we do not resist evil, will evil spread?" The Buddha taught that resisting evil with evil only extends suffering. He did not tell humans to remain silent before sin, but told them to stop their anger before acting. Because only when the mind is free of anger can action truly have the power to transform. He said no hatred can extinguish hatred. Only compassion can extinguish hatred. This is the eternal law. That law is so simple it makes the world forget. Because humans always believe that only power can protect the good. But the Buddha pointed out that violence, even bearing the name of righteousness, only feeds the seeds of violence. And precisely because of that, precepts, especially the precept of non-killing, become the boundary between those still led by karma and those beginning liberation. The Buddha taught that a mind without anger is an impregnable fortress. One who has no anger, no one can hurt. One who has no hatred, no one can imprison. Because freedom does not come from outside, but from letting go of malice and the heart. A monk asked him, if a precept holder is killed by another, do they lose? He replied, the killer can win the body, but cannot win the mind. Because this body is inherently impermanent, but the pure mind is deathless. That statement is the lamp illuminating all of Buddhist morality. Keeping precepts is not to live long, but to live true to the luminous nature of the mind. In many sutras, the Buddha reminded that virtue is the supreme asset. Kings can steal gold, thieves can take lives, but no one can steal the virtue of an awakened person, because virtue does not lie outside the body but lies in the direction of the mind. The precept holder not only lives peacefully in the world, but also steps across the border of fear. He once said, when a precept holder does no harm to anyone, even if dying, they leave with a mind without regret. But one who lives in hatred, even with power, still dies in darkness. Therefore, keeping precepts is not the morality of society, but the morality of the soul. It does not aim to create a good image, but aims to liberate the holder from the bindings of karma. And also from there, the Buddha opened up a completely new perspective on freedom. Freedom is not being able to do what one wants, but not being forced to do what is unwholesome. One who is no longer led by greed, hatred, and delusion, even if the body is bound, is still free. One who is still commanded by malice, even if the body is loose, is still a slave. That is the freedom of one who has seen. And to get there, there is no other way than keeping precepts to the very end. Because once people no longer have murderous intent, all disputes, all wars, all resentment vanish like smoke before the wind. Because for one without anger, no one can force them to cause suffering. For one without greed, no one can bribe them. For one without delusion, no one can deceive them. That is the truly free person. Keeping precepts is the beginning, but in its depth, it is the destination. Because when the mind is completely pure, no killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or wrong view, that mind is nirvana right here and now. The Buddha never promised a heaven after death. He only pointed to the present moment, where the precept holder sits quietly without fear. That is a real heaven, where the mind has no shadow of sin. In the time of the Buddha, kings and warriors often came to find him not to learn the way but to find justification for their actions. They wanted to hear that what they did was legitimate, that killing enemies to keep the kingdom at peace was wholesome karma. But they did not know that the silence of the enlightened one was the most profound answer. When King Pasenadi of Kosala came to visit him, the Buddha said nothing about war, nor did he advise the king to abandon the throne. He only asked if there were 4 mountains rolling from 4 directions, crushing all living beings on their path, what would you do? The king was surprised and asked back, sir, in such a scene, what else can be done but to live true to the Dharma? The Buddha smiled. Old age, sickness, death, and time. Those are the 4 mountains rolling toward all beings. So what will you choose, hoarding armies or living according to the Dharma? In that moment, the king was stunned. He did not force him to abandon war. He only made him see for himself the meaninglessness of violence and the face of impermanence, because he understood that humans do not fear war as much as they fear losing power, and thus only enlightenment can make them let go on their own. King Pasenadi was once a bellicose man. He once led armies to attack neighboring countries, once fell into the ambition of expanding territory. But after many times coming to listen to the Dharma, one day he said, one who acts with evil body, evil speech, evil mind, even with 1,000 armies, is not protected. One who acts with good body, good speech, good mind, even with no one protecting, is still safe. The Buddha only nodded because he knew he had begun to understand. That understanding was not enough to make him a saint, but enough for him to stop a cruel action. When his enemy, King Ajatashatru, attacked and was captured, Pasenadi had the right to kill for revenge, but he did not do so. He only had the enemy bound and then released him. Hearing that news, the Buddha said, "The plunderer will be plundered, the killer will be killed, the conqueror will be conquered. The cycle of karma favors no one." Then he fell silent. That sentence is the supreme verdict of karma. He did not need to convict anyone, because cause and effect convict by themselves. The killer today is the one killed tomorrow, not because heaven punishes, but because the seed of violence never dies, just waiting for conditions to bloom. Another time, a warrior came to him saying, "My teacher taught, if I die in battle, I will be born into the heaven of heroes." The Buddha remained silent. The warrior asked again. Then the third time, seeing his heart was sincere, he said, "When a person fights with the desire to destroy another, their mind has been taken over by hatred. If dying in that state of mind, they are born into the hell of the slain." The warrior heard this and burst into tears, not out of fear but because he realized the truth had been obscured by the deceptive words of the world. That story shows that the Buddha did not teach the way with words, but with the light of truth. He knew if he spoke too soon when the listener was not ready, they would resist. But when their mind was sincere, just one word was enough to make them shed tears. His silence was compassion, not agreement. Many later misunderstood that because the Buddha did not stop kings from war, he accepted war. But in truth, he knew they could not yet understand, and so he sowed seeds rather than forcing them. He said in a sutra that because people do not clearly see cause and effect, they accept killing. When they see clearly, they can no longer hold the knife. He did not oppose power but dissolve power from within. He taught kings that conquering others is temporary, but conquering oneself is eternal. The one who defeats 10,000 troops on the battlefield is not equal to the one who defeats himself. The one who can tame their own mind is the greatest victor. That is the eternal declaration of Buddhism, a revolution without bloodshed, where the only weapons are wisdom and compassion. In those dialogues, the Buddha did not debate. He only held up a mirror for humans to look back at themselves, and the miracle is that anyone brave enough to look changed. Because when humans see clearly the consequences of hatred, they cannot continue to hate. When they see clearly the nature of killing, they cannot kill. Only ignorance makes the trembling hand grip the knife tight. But when the light of understanding shines in, that hand naturally lowers. That is the silent power of precepts and wisdom, a power that needs no manifesto, needs no victory, because it ends the entire cause of conflict in a single peaceful breath. When he told the bhikshus, "Even if others cut your body piece by piece, if anger rises, you are not following my words," that is not a metaphysical teaching but a practical instruction to extinguish all suffering. Because right when anger rises, samsara has begun. When anger ceases, samsara ends. The power of compassion lies not in forgiving others but in no longer seeing anyone who needs to be forgiven. When seeing clearly that all beings act due to karma, anger turns into pity, pity turns into wisdom, and that wisdom is the light cutting off all violence at the root. The Buddha did not teach humans to be nice people. He taught them to recognize the nature of kindness, not teaching them to love as a virtue, but pointing out that when seeing correctly, love naturally arises. And that is exactly where suffering ends, where wholesome and unwholesome are no longer two poles, leaving only a mind unclouded. One who reaches that point no longer needs to keep precepts, because precepts have become their breath. They do not need to avoid killing, because their mind cannot generate the will to kill. They do not need to avoid lying, because their words are the truth of reality. And they do not need to resist anger, because anger no longer has a place to dwell. That is the destination of the path the Buddha opened, an absolute freedom where no one is harmed and no one can be harmed, because in that mind, all wars have already ended.